What's up everyone, it's me, Zero and my Kitsune, and today we are taking a look at this new Steam blog post. I took notice of this after suddenly seeing this glowing microphone looking thing. I don't know when Steam implemented that, but I guess that's how they're going to be, delivering actual Steam related content news.
Thinking quickly, Dave constructs a homemade megaphone using only some string, a squirrel, and a megaphone.
But yeah, this is related to the whole, they're going to be implementing new features and stuff, dealing with, mature content games after they basically announced that they were now going to accept anything that is an actual game. So I thought we could take a look at this and read it out together. It's been a few months since we talked about how we want to approach shipping games with controversial content. In that blog post with a hyperlink, we've talked about some of the tools we felt needed to build, and we thought it would be good to give you an update on where we are at. We've done a number of things since that post, some of which seem unrelated, but if we are going to maintain an open view of what gets onto the store, then you need good tools to find the games you want, as well as avoid the things you don't. Now I like this. I like transparency in this. Now don't get it twisted. I am very skeptical about this system, not only by the words that Steam has said before and the actions they have taken, but also just the games that have been getting onto the Steam and the games that don't. I've heard recent troubles with some mature content devs about their games getting on, but then you see absolute garbage get on just anyway. So it's very confusing, but I do want to believe that Steam is trying to work. I've been talking to people and they've been very negative on this subject, but I want to maintain a positive opinion on Steam, at least right now until they actually fuck up. But let's continue. The first set of changes focused on improving how you can find new games. We've added developer and publisher homepages with a link, so you can easily get from a game you love to others made by the same creators, or follow them if you want to be notified whenever they say or make something. We've significantly worked how our upcoming games list functioned, so they're much better at showing you upcoming games that you might be interested in, or upcoming extra content for a game you've been playing a bunch. Okay, let's take a look at this developer and publisher homepage. I've actually never seen this. Okay, this looks neat. It's got my suggested for me, Bethesda, Bandai Namco, Exceed, Sega, Marvelous, Valve. Don't know what that is. What the fuck's Coffee Stain? Focus Home Entertainment, I think that's Vampire. I should totally finish that review. Arc System and Capcom. Okay. I like the Sukaban games. That is a very small development studio. So to see them wrapped up in all this, nice thing. Let's see, it shows a bunch of new functions. We're gonna ignore that, and we're actually gonna click on Sukaban games. They're the ones that made Valhalla, and see what we get. Okay, we get a little quote from them, shows one of their new releases, and obviously, I don't think they've made many games, so obviously that's what we see. It looks like the Steam Curator page. They haven't made any list. Speaking of which, I do have a Steam Curator page. I might leave that in the description of this video. Yeah, they only have one game. Could have sworn they had more. Oh, they have reviews of other games. Oh, so it also functions as a curator page. That is interesting. But yeah, this is very useful if you like certain developers. I'm actually going to go ahead and follow Sukaban Games because they are cool and Valhalla is great. You should check out my review. So let's head back to the blog post. A second set of changes was focused on improving how you can ignore things you're not interested in. In the past, you've been able to ignore individual games or product types, like VR or early access you didn't want to see again, but now we've added ways for you to also ignore individual developers, publishers, and curators. This is the big thing that they've kind of been toting the whole time. The ability to just block what you don't want to see and never see it again. We've also improved the game filter tag on your account preferences. Previously it was a list of 3 game tags that you wanted to see less of. We've now increased that number of tags to 10 and made them a hard filter. In short, the store now assumes you want to ignore all games that feature any of those tags in their most popular tags, instead of using them as a suggestion to our recommendation engine. Now personally, I am fine with this, but I do want to bring up the fact that, funny enough, this is actually something that's technically against the developers. Now, instead of consumers simply being less likely to see your game, they just simply won't see your game if you just happen to have a tag. Now on the consumer side, that's great. If I don't want to see it, I don't fucking see it. But on the developers, that is going to cause some developers to just not reach certain consumers that maybe they don't like a particular type of product, but you know, exceptions do happen. But again, it's better for the consumers and it gets people off Steam's back, so I'm generally okay with this. But it seems like this is going to go in a little bit, so let's see how they pulled it off. We did our best to ensure that you can safely ignore swaths of games in the store, but still find them if you look directly via the search tools. If the game we think you're searching for is hidden due to your mature content settings, we identified that and let you know in a safe way. For example, if you have preferences set to hide mature games with violence, but search for The Witcher 3, you'll see this, and then it shows an image. Yes, this. Now if you're a person who uses Bethesda mods and you've been to the Skyrim Nexus or the Fallout Nexus or the whatever Nexus, it covers a lot of games. It also does this with this search engine. The only thing I can say is that it looks like you can't just simply click a button to restore, you know, ignore your preferences and just give me the full list. That's actually a feature that I think the Nexus does have, and I think that's cool. Maybe I don't want a game with, I don't know, satanic symbols or something. But then I filtered out 45 damn titles. Maybe I just want to click a button and be like, you know what am I missing out on? Hopefully they'll add that in, but you know, generally I like this. Continue on. If there are games that your search should contain that you're ignoring for other reasons due to its developer or game tags for instance, we still include it in the list, but we'll blur it out, and when you hover over it, you can see why it's darkened. For example, if you choose to ignore games by Valve, lol, and then search for Left 4 Dead, you'll see this. And the image shows excluded by ignore developer, publisher, or franchise. I like that. Ooh. A third set of changes focuses on allowing you to have better control over the kinds of mature content you see. So far, the store has allowed you to filter out games that feature frequent violence, gore, or nudity/sexual content. After looking at the mature content in submissions we're receiving, and at some games that are already in the store, we've added two more options. The first is a general mature content filter. We often see developers who tell us their games contain mature content, but not sex or violence, and you can now filter out those games if you wish. The second is an adult-only filter, which allows you to filter out games that feature explicit sexual content. Okay, so they've added just more layers to it. Can't say no to more layers. Let's actually take a look at those preferences, because my page should be on the default. Okay, and right there, adult-only content is already ticked off. I did not do that. It is just ticked off by default, despite the fact that my box clearly has nudity and sexual content, frequent violent gore, general mature content checked on. So I see you, Valve. I see what you did there. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Okay, back to the blog post. We're also now requiring developers of games with violence or sexual content to describe the content of their game. Yes, make developers do more. And we're using that information to help you decide whether a game is something you're comfortable with. We think the context of how content is presented is important, yes it is, and giving a developer a place to describe and explain what's in their game gives you even more information when browsing and considering a purchase. When you're looking at the store page of a game with mature content, we'll display that developer written description to you. We're also displaying it on the interstitial page. We show you if you ever follow a direct link from outside Steam to a game that should be filtered for you. Okay, so this is what you see if you click like a YouTube link for a mature game or something. And you know, also if you click something that, you know, its warning is. I do like this. I like, you know, some more handwritten stuff into these filters. You know, you got all these algorithms and bots and I don't know. I don't know about anyone else, but the idea that the future is just algorithms and robots deciding what, you know, a consumer can see kinda creeps me out. So seeing just a little more homegrown people interaction, I like this, and giving the developer, you know, room to say their piece, I like that even more. Finally, we've continued our efforts in removing bad actors from Steam. Last year, we made changes to trading cards to address the way a small set of developers were producing quote-unquote games that generate revenue without anyone actually buying and playing them. Recently, we made more changes, both trading cards and more changes have links, to address the other way these bad actors were continuing to do it. We've also permanently banned several developers of games that we felt fit the straight up trolling description of games we're not going to allow onto the store. There is actually a surprisingly small number of individuals behind almost all of these games, and their ban has been a straightforward series of decisions thus far. You can read more about the shorthand of straight up trolling and the process of making these decisions in the QA below. Yeah, there is a QA, we'll go over that. Okay, the trading card changes I think are really good because I think the trading card system in Steam is one of those, not even one of those, is the most abusable part of Steam. Screw getting your game onto the platform. I mean, you can throw up a game that's crap and no one will notice it. But the trading card system, the economy it fostered, and the desire for people to simply buy a 5-cent game to get 15 trading cards, and then it screws up the algorithms all over the place. And I mean, technically speaking, everyone who is part of that system wins, but at the same time it's not playing a fair game, so I'm against it. With these sets of changes, we hope you have a better sense of how we're approaching building a store that works for all developers and players. There's still plenty of work to do. In our previous post link, we've identified a range of things from parental controls to tools for developers to manage their communities. In addition, some of the changes described in this post will require more options when we see new kinds of content in the game submissions. Going forward, we aim to continue this strategy of shipping features as they are finished and posting periodic updates as to the nuts and bolts and the thinking behind their development. Again, yeah, I like the transparency, but Steam does have a long way to go with their platform in general. I mean, let's be real, they kind of hold a monopoly on this, so they've kind of been dragging their feet with a lot of things. And when it comes to mature content, they only really cared about it after it was brought to light. And I do respect the fact that they're not saying, you know, just kick mature content off the service, but instead they're deciding to handle it in a more professional and serious manner. So that's good. And in the end, this isn't just about mature content. This is improving the Steam store overall and dealing with things like troll games, dealing with the algorithms, all of that stuff matters when it comes to these changes. So it's good to see them all get improved. So okay, let's go into the QA, and instead of reading out each and every one of these, I'm just going to summarize and then give my opinion. Question: what about games that are already in the store that include mature content? And Steam basically says they're going to go back through each and every one of them, which is an obvious thing. It's going to take a while because their back catalog is huge. I mean, this is Steam, but it'll eventually work. Next question: what do you mean in practice when you say you won't ship games that are outright trolling? That seems vague. And on this one, I'll actually read it out. It's vague, and we'll tell you why. You're a denizen of the internet, so you know that trolls come in all forms. It's always weird to hear corporations say the word troll. On Steam, some are simply trying to rile people up with something we call a game-shaped object. I like that. Some trolls are trying to scam folks out of their Steam inventory items. Others are looking for a way to generate a small amount of money off Steam through a series of schemes that revolve around how we let developers use Steam keys. Others are just trying to incite and sow discord. Trolls are figuring out new ways to be loathsome as we write this, but the thing these folks have in common is that they aren't actually interested in good faith efforts to make and sell games to you or anyone. When a developer's motives aren't that, they're probably a troll. And you know what? I think that might be the best way to handle this sort of system. Are you trying to make a good product? Are you trying to sell a good product? If you're not, then get out. I think that's probably the best way Steam can handle this, because that separates game development into two very specific cases. Are you making it for you, or are you making it for the people? And you can make money making it for the people, so it's not a question are you making it to make money or are you not. So that separation, I really do like their definition of what they're saying a troll is. But let's keep going. Our review of something that may be a troll game is a deep assessment that actually begins with the developer. Yes, we're investigating who the developer is, what they've done in the past, their behavior on Steam as a developer, as a customer, their banking information, developers they associate, and more. All of this is done to answer the question of who are we partnering with and why do they want to sell this game. Now, I don't want that to delve into, you know, personal investigations. What is this person's political affiliations, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what skin color they are, some bullshit like that. But seeing if someone has harassed customers, I think is a good thing as a developer, as a businessman. I don't necessarily agree with it when it comes to like customers, like, you know, the whole I think it's Overwatch doing that and, you know, policing what their consumers do off the site. I don't like that for when it comes to consumers, but when it comes to developers, people you're doing business with, I can kind of get behind that as long as they aren't pulling some bullshit half-assed methods, and I'll get into that right after I finish reading this. We get as much context around the creation and the creator of the game, and then we make an assessment. A trend we're seeing is that we often ban these people from Steam altogether instead of cherry picking through their individual game submissions. In the words of someone here in the office, it really does seem like bad games are made by bad people. This doesn't mean that there aren't some crude or lower quality games on Steam, but it does mean we believe the developers behind them aren't out to do anything more than sell a game they hope some folks will want to buy or play. And I like that. I like that last statement. They're acknowledging that some of these crap games aren't made by people with ill intent. They're just crap games. And they're really, this whole statement overall is really focusing on ill intent, because that's my biggest problem with Steam filtering out certain games. It's how do you differentiate a bad game from a, I don't even want to use the word toxic game, but from someone who's trying to, like, I guess, harass people through the form of a video game. Like, how do you separate those two, and how do you keep bias out of that? And that's the big one. I want to know how they're going to keep bias out of it, because when you have these massive companies that put in these sort of rules and, you know, I guess these guidelines, yeah, that's the best word to go with. When you talk about these companies that have guidelines, they tend to make very strict guidelines, but they only make them strict because they can cherry pick when they're enforced. Like, let's take slurs or language. A lot of these big companies basically have like a one strike rule. You say a slur, you're out. But they get to use that sort of, you know, that very rigid rule set because they get to enforce it whenever they want. If it's someone they like who says a slur, they just let it slide. But if someone they don't like, it's one strike, you're out. Now, if they're going to put in some sort of rules that's, I'm not saying that's what Steam's going to do here, but I'm just using that as an analogy. What I hope is that they create a set of rules that they apply universally, because that also means you can't apply rigid rules like that would end up banning a large swath of people who are generally in good spirits and don't mean any harm, but maybe they said something in the heat of the moment. That way it won't be nearly as rigid, and instead will be something a little bit more broad and something that they consider a little bit more before hitting the ban hammer on developers. And so far I haven't seen any news of any, I guess, good faith developers being banned from the platform. We still got 2 Q&As to go, so let's go through that. Sometimes I see blurred out games on my storefront page. Why is that? And this basically boils down to saying, if you have effectively filtered out almost all the games on the platform, well, we have to show you something. So instead of just straight up showing you it because you did have it filtered out, because you have everything filtered out, we'll show you something blurred out. I actually thought this was going to be like, well, at first I thought this was going to be something similar to like Pixel, the streaming website. So even if you say show adult content, it'll still be blurred out until you like move your mouse over it, or until you click another switch that says, okay, don't also blur out the adult content. But no, this is straight up saying, if you banned almost everything, well, we have to show you something. And finally, why do you keep asking my damn age throughout the store? And this is a question I've had for a while. So I'm actually going to read the whole thing. We're with you on this. Unfortunately, many rating agencies, have rules that stipulate that we cannot save your age for longer than a single browsing session. It's frustrating, but no, we're filling out those age gates too. Okay, so that answers the question I've had for a while about just repeatedly asking my damn age. So that's their progress update. They're really showing that they are working on something. They're not hiding it behind the curtains until a grand reveal, which I think is the better way. I think especially when you're working on something that has live testing, because I've heard stories of people just being delayed for like months at a time for their games getting on the platform because they're working on these new systems. I like that instead of doing anything behind the curtains, because they know they're affecting people right now, they're just being very transparent with the progress. I'm still very skeptical on how they're going to pull this off at the very end, because there's always room to mess up, and these big companies do tend to mess up a lot. But I do want to give credit where credit is due. They're trying to do something that is there to help developers and consumers alike, and that's a lot more than can be said about a lot of these companies right now. 2018 has been a weird year. Either way, that's the progress update for Steam. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video content. Maybe leave a like or a comment if you want to see more of these kind of, blog readings or kind of just news stories in gaming in general, since I tend to do opinion pieces more often than this kind of stuff, so this still turned out into an opinion piece. But I'm rambling, so check out some of my other videos, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!